Welcome back, players and collectors, to my channel, RensCollectibles. Today we're doing something a little different. We are going to be teaching you guys the basics of Nostalgix TCG gameplay using the tabletop simulator as our guide here. But this is a good little tutorial to show you kind of exactly how to play cards, how certain mechanics at the very basic level work, and to get you guys going in your very first game of Nostalgix TCG. I highly recommend you download Discord if you haven't already, if you don't have Discord. And if you do have Discord, join the Nostalgix TCG Discord. There's a lively community there with lots of deck talk, deck building, and deck testing. If you're looking to start playing and learn how to play, there's tons of people out there as well, ready to teach people how to play, myself included, and take you guys through starter decks just like this to learn the game. But without further ado, let's get right on into it, and let's show you guys the basics of how to play Nostalgix TCG. All right, we have our decks loaded up. We are ready to go. So for this tutorial, I have the Divine Rule deck, which is one of my favorite starter decks, and our opponent is going to be using the Cluster Fox deck. Now, typically when you start games off, you want to give your opponent a high five, handshake, fist bump, whatever you want to do. We encourage respect and niceties throughout these games. Then both players are going to draw their cards. They're going to draw 6 cards into your starting hand. And we look at our cards here. The official mulligan rule for Nostalgix TCG is that you can take any number of cards in your hand up to your entire hand and put them at the bottom of your deck and redraw that many cards and then shuffle. So for the sake of this demo here, we are going to take a tutorial level since we have 2 of them, and I think that's the only card I really want to get rid of, so we're going to go ahead and put that at the bottom of the deck. We're going to draw our 1 back because we only put 1 card in. We're only taking 1 card back, and we are going to shuffle our deck. Our opponent's going to do the exact same thing, and then when we're both ready to play, somebody's going to grab a die, and the other person will decide whether they want odds or evens, and then you roll. So for this, we're going to say our opponent called even, and it rolled an odd, which means that we get to choose whether we want to go first or go second. So if you go first, the advantage is that you get to play cards first and faster. If you go second, then you get this 1-time extra mana token that can be used at any time you desire for current mana. However, it can only be used once, and if you use it on a turn and don't actually use the mana, then you lose it. For this tutorial, we're just going to go ahead and say we go first. So to start off your game, there's 2 main phases. There's the upkeep phase and then the main phase. Main phase has everything you pretty much play and attack and do all the abilities and things. Your upkeep phase, though, is consistent of 2 things: bringing your maximum mana up, resetting your current mana, and then bringing it up to where your maximum is. That's how you do your upkeep on mana. And then you draw a card. So here we drew another Sarah, and then once you get these 2 things done, you move into the main phase where you get to spend mana, play cards, and attack, use hero abilities. For the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to bump the mana up to 3 and simulate that we are on turn 3 already. So, 3 mana. We drew our card, and we have these cards to choose from. Again, you have, and if you look at the top left corner, you can see that this is a surprise. This is an arena. This one's a fighter. This is, you can tell by looking at the bottom left and seeing the life total in that little blood drop shape. That's how you know that that's a fighter. We also have a spell. Because of the top left, you see the hand with the little sun. So we're going to spend 2 mana, bringing our current mana total down to 1, and we're going to play a Sarah onto the field. Now remember, you only have enough room for 7 fighters. Tokens do not take up fighter space. They are infinite as you acquire them. However, until you hit your 7 fighter playing field here, tokens will just take up one of these slots. Once you get enough fighters and you start playing more out, they just kind of bump off to the right. We do have an extra mana, so should we choose to, we can activate our hero's ability, which is once per turn you may pay 1 mana to restore 1 life to any fighter or hero. But since our hero and our fighter are both at max life, we don't really want to do that. So we can look at our cards. We do have 1 card that costs 1 mana as indicated in the upper right corner. So we're going to go ahead and spend that 1 mana to play a spell card, Alternate Timeline. Now this says look at the top 2 cards of your deck, draw 1 and void the other. So we're going to draw our 2 cards. We got a reverse, and we got a Farn. So we get to pick 1 to keep in our hand and 1 we must void. I'm going to go ahead and keep the Farn, and we're going to void the reverse right up here. Now your void, as again, if you watch any of the tutorials, this is your discard pile. And if any of this, you don't understand any of this, look up the Nostalgix TCG basics, how to play in 2 minutes or less video. They will go over the playing field here, essentially what everything does and where the placement is. But for sake of this, we're just going to breeze through how to play the game. So we played the spell here. We've resolved the effect already, so we're going to go ahead and bring that to the discard pile as well. Since we just played this fighter, the first time the fighter hits the field, it has Summoning Sickness, which means it cannot attack on the first turn it's played. So we unfortunately cannot attack. But if a fighter has Taunt in the ability text, which is right below the name, then if it has Charge, it can attack right away. Otherwise, it cannot. And if this was a fighter you just played down and then you evolved, if a turn has already passed with the basic fighter down on the field, and then you evolve it, you can attack with the evolved fighter right away. You don't have to pay the Summoning Sickness again to a fighter that's already on the field. That's all we can do in this turn, so we're going to go ahead and pass over to our opponent and let them have their turn. Okay, now that is our turn again. We are back at the upkeep phase. So first things first, we're going to bring our maximum mana up by 1. We reset our current mana all the way down to 0. Ours happened to already be there, so less work we have to do. And then we bring it up to the maximum mana. So we have 4 mana to spend on this turn, and we get to draw our card for the beginning of the turn. Remember that your hand at the end of your turn cannot exceed 10 cards, otherwise you have to discard some cards. But we have 4 mana. We're going to go ahead and just play a slew of things here. We're going to play a surprise, Save the Day. This is really good surprise card. When a fighter is played, you may pay 5 of your hero's life to void it and negate any effect that playing it would have. So the way surprises work is you pay the mana up front to place the surprise face down. And then once it's face down, you have to put a die on it, with a number indicating how much mana you spent on it. This is to prevent cheating or not remembering how much you've spent on things beforehand. So the only thing our opponent knows about this card is that it's a 3-cost surprise, which doesn't really mean anything because there's some surprises from Harmonic Surge that can cost any amount of mana. So we have a surprise, only we know what this is. And the cool thing is this, since we've already paid the cost, we can play whenever the effect of the card is happening. So in this case, when our opponent plays a fighter that we don't want them to play, we can activate this card, pay 5 of our hero's life, and then negate that fighter anyway. So we're just going to go ahead and leave it face down, let it be a surprise to our opponent up here. They have no idea what it is, and once they play a fighter that we don't want on the field, we can activate this card. Now we do have 1 mana left. Again, we can't really use our hero's ability here because our hero and our fighter are at full health. So we're going to spend that 1 extra mana, and we're going to play a Fairn. Again, Fairn has Summoning Sickness. Since we just played it this turn, it cannot attack. However, the Sarah over here we played last turn, and it has now officially made its Summoning Sickness round. It is over it. It's paid the cost because it's 1 turn later, so we can now attack with Sarah. And we're going to do just that. We're going to use Judgment Slash for 2 damage on our opponent's hero up here and bring their life total down to 38. Again, remember, the 2 ways to win in Nostalgix TCG is to either knock your opponent's hero's life down to 0 or knock out 10 fighters of your enemies and bring all your counters back down to 0. That's all we can do on this turn. We're going to pass to our opponent and see what they play. Okay, so on our opponent's turn, they spent 3 mana to play this Stackafox, which is a big hitter. We definitely don't want this on the field of play. If we had enough fighters out, we'd attack it just to kill it. But in this case, we actually have something up our sleeve that our opponent does not know about we can use on this Stackafox. But just looking at the card real quick, you can see that this is a fox, and after this attacks, summon a 1 attack fox token with 1 life. And then its attack, stack attack, does 3+ damage. And the ability is deal 1 more damage for each other fox you control. So I'm sure you can already tell that this card can get nasty really fast, because every time you attack with Stackafox, it creates a fox token, which then boosts the attack of Stackafox here by 1 each time. So if it attacks this turn, it would deal 3 damage and create the token. The next turn, it would deal 4 damage and create another token. Now, this does have Summoning Sickness since our opponent just played it. However, it's not going to matter because remember that surprise we played last turn? We're going to activate it at this moment. So it says, when a fighter is played, you may pay 5 life of your hero's life to void it and negate any effects that playing it would have. So we don't even want to give it the chance to attack or build up anything. We're going to go ahead and just pay the 5 life, bringing our hero's total down to 35, and void that Stackafox up there. And then since this has been resolved, we're going to go ahead and move it over to the discard pile, the void, and it is done. It served its purpose. At the end of our opponent's turn, they did play 1 more mana to play a Pigma onto the field, which can be a big hitter against us, but it could also be a big hitter against our opponent as well. So this is one to definitely keep our eye on and then see what happens. However, it's our turn. We're going to do our upkeep phase, which again, bring your maximum mana up by 1, reset your current mana to 0, and then fill it back up to where the maximum mana is. So we go back up to 5 mana, and then we're going to draw our card on top of that. We drew another Panbu, so we could really stack the field here with some fighters. We have enough mana to definitely stack a lot here. And we might just do that. But before we do it, we want to make sure, especially since we've got tons of fighters we can play, we want to play this tutorial level. So during the draw step of each player's turn, that's the upkeep phase, that player draws until they have 5 cards in their hand. If a player already has 5 cards in their hand, they simply draw 1. So this card right here will allow us to play multiple cards and then be able to draw up to 5 every turn it's in play. And the way arenas work is you pay the cost It's a 3-cost card, and then it goes into the special slot right up here. And just like in Pokemon, this affects both players. So our opponent, at the start of their turn, their upkeep phase, if they don't have 5 cards in their hand, they draw up to 5. And if they have 5 cards, they just simply draw 1. But we have room for 2 more fighters. We can play 2 Panbu, or we can play a Sarah. I think at this point, we might just want to play the 1 Sarah for 2 mana, because upon playing this Sarah, our hero gains 2 life, as it says, from the ability on Sarah. So we're going to actually go up to 37 life. This Sarah has Summoning Sickness, so it cannot attack, but these 2 over here, the Sarah and this Farron, were played previous turns. They paid their cost. We can attack. Now, with your main phase, you can attack at any point you like and continue spending mana afterwards should you choose to. You don't have to play all your cards and then attack. You can do it however you want. You could start your turn by doing your upkeep with your mana, drawing your card, and then attack right away, and then play cards after. You can play 1 card, attack with everything, play another card. However you want to do it, your main phase is yours to control as you see fit, as long as it's within the rules and realms of the TCG. Now, our opponent has a fighter up, and they have life. So again, the 2 ways to win the game is either knock out 10 of your opponent's fighters, or knock out your opponent's hero's life to 0. For this, we kind of... They only have 1 fighter out, and it's kind of a risk. We either let it live and attack directly to the hero to deal massive damage, or we just take out the fighter here and then deal a little bit of damage to the fighter. However you strategize and work it out is up to you. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to use Farron to attack the Pigma for 2 damage using Holy Light. Now, since Pigma only has 2 life, that's a pretty good hit. It knocks out the Pigma, and we get to take 1 prize token to go down to 9. So we only have to knock out 9 more fighters in order to win the game, or again, knock out the hero's health. With this Sarah, we're going to attack, and actually before we attack, I'm jumping a little bit too far ahead. Farron has Life Touch, the ability Life Touch. When this fighter deals damage, heal your hero by the same amount. So since we dealt 2 damage to Pigma, we actually get to heal our hero by 2, bringing our total back up to 39. And then we're going to use Sarah to attack the hero again, Judgment Slash for 2 damage, and bring the hero's total down to 36. So that is a quick way to play the game right here. Knock out fighters, or knock out hero, or kind of do a board control like this, where your opponent doesn't really have much they could put out and play, and go from there. One other thing I want to show you guys is the equipment that can be attached to either the fighter or a hero. If we have the 2 extra mana here, let's just say we have 2 extra mana, you can spend 2 to attach equipment like this bubble shield onto either the fighters or the hero. So this one says, when your opponent attacks this target, prevent any effects of the attack except damage that the attack deals directly. So for example, if your opponent had a Meduset out in play up here, and the effect of Meduset when it attacks is that it binds whatever it attacks. If you have Bubble Shield on, let's say we spent it to place it down and attach it to our hero. If that Meduset attacked our hero for 2 damage and would typically bind it, this Bubble Shield actually absolves the effects of the attack. So Shimmer Seraph would still take the 2 damage, but it would not be bound because of the equipment attached to it. This is the basics of how to play Nostalgix. As the game increases and goes on, you get more and more mana, you get some better cards, and then you can eventually evolve or play certain things like this tower fall here. If our opponent had some big fighters out up here and we didn't have any, or in the, vice versa, if our opponent had this tower fall, this would be a good time to play it for them. They play the tower fall and it says deal damage equal to your opponent's hand size to all their fighters, and then you get to draw 2. So if they played this, we have 4 or 3 fighters out with maximum of 4 health, and we have 5 cards in our hand. That would essentially wipe all 3 of these out. And now the opponent is back in the game. So strategies are all up to you in how you play your cards, but that is the basic way to play Nostalgix TCG. One other thing that I do want to mention before I cut out this video is that fighters can also evolve in this game as well. So as you see here, Farron is a basic fighter. There's nothing on the card that really indicates it right away, but just their name alone has no evolved form above it. So that means it's a basic stage 1 fighter. As you look down here, Valhalla is not. If you look above the name Valhalla, it says evolves from Farron. So that's how you know it's an evolution, and also tells you who it evolves from. So in order to play this Valhalla, we have to have 4 mana and we have to have Farron on the board. So if this was a turn where we didn't have Farron on the board, but we had it in hand, we could spend our 1 mana to play Farron and then spend 4 more to play Valhalla on top of it, essentially evolving it. If this was the case, the Valhalla would still have to pay Summoning Sickness because the Farron below it did not already pay it by being placed in the field of play and going on from there. However, if the Farron was already in play, we pass turn to our opponent, they do their thing, they pass the turn back to us, and it's our turn again. Since Farron has already paid the Summoning Sickness cost, all we have to do is pay the mana cost here. In this case, it's 4 to evolve it and play this card. And now Valhalla, having already served the Summoning Sickness, can attack right away. So this one will do 5 damage, direct damage to the opponent's hero over here, and it can attack right away. That's a big boost. And same thing for Valkyrian here. On our next turn, even on this turn, if we had enough mana to evolve it, if we had 7 extra mana, we could evolve it twice, bring it all the way up to Valkyrian and attack with it. However, if you attacked with Valhalla in the turn and then you evolve Valkyrian, you cannot attack again. You can only do 1 attack per fighter stack each turn. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is a very quick and fast tutorial on Nostalgix TCG and kind of seeing how it gets played out. If you are interested in learning to play or want to see how it plays more in depth, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. I will be doing a starter deck live tutorial very, very soon where I will be playing somebody with a starter deck, likely this exact starter deck, and playing an actual live game from start to finish to show all the ins and outs of how Nostalgix TCG is played. Also join the Discord, link in the description down below. But the Discord is another good place to get people to play. There's always somebody around that is willing and able to play. There's a lot of good people to test decks against if you're building your own deck, or if you have no idea how to build a deck or where to go to start building a deck, there's really good resources there. So make sure you download Discord if you haven't already and join the Nostalgix TCG Discord. That's all the time I have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again, and we'll see you guys in the next video.